So I would like to just welcome everybody. I'm Nathan Scott, the Executive Director of MassEnergize, and it's really a pleasure to see all of you. Some of you for the first time, but most of you see. Welcome back to the community of practice of MassEnergize, and we're really hoping that tonight's conversation is going to be stimulating. We really encourage all of you to participate. We have a variety of topics, but we also want to make sure that this is a place where people can and do share, ask questions. So please feel free to speak up during the evening. And with that, I am going to pass it to Kat.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back. Good to see you all. I have the pleasure of demoing and introducing, though we've introduced it before, but demoing today the Resource Center, the MassEnergize Resource Center, to show you what is there and especially to show you how to operate it and get from it all kinds of resources and toolkits, etc., that you would need. So let me just share my screen and minimize this. So the way to get to the Resource Center is you just type in resources.massenergize.org, this URL, and that will take you to the homepage of the Resource Center. And as you can see, your first time around, you will not have an account yet on the center. And so this will just say sign in, but even not signed in, you can take a little browse, see what all is there. I advise to go to all resources because there you can find all these resources under certain categories. For instance, if you are interested in watching the recording of this meeting or watching the recording of the community of practice meeting in this one is in January. You can just click on Community of Practice and you will find all of these here. You can click on any of those and you will see a little table of contents of what all is there. Let's go back. Let's go to Resources for Admins. This is also quite special. There's good stuff here. Again, you click on one of these. You scroll down and you can see that this is a larger playbook, for instance. You'll see that you will not be able to get into the content though. And in order to get into the content of any of these, what you would do is to click on Enroll for free. Most of our resources here, and when you click on all, you see all of them. They are all enroll for free. That means you'll just enroll and you're in right there. And you don't need our go ahead, our permission to get in. There's one exception, and that is the training for the admins. That's this one. For this one, you will be, or you already have been, automatically enrolled. If not, you just write to us, and I click on that, at support@massenergize.org. And we will enroll you. So this is not a very publicly available toolkit or playbook. The other ones, however, are freely available to everyone. So let's go to one of these. Let's go to this one. And I would like to go into this one, for instance, which is interpreting your Google Analytics report, which Marina today will be talking about. And so quickly, you can click on Enroll for free. And the Resource Center will ask you to sign in if you already have an account, or sign up if you don't. And all you have to do is type in your name here, your email here, and then a name, and it will recognize into each of these resources. And then you will see that it's just a matter of chapters and lessons. The Resource Center also has downloads. This one, for instance, has long lists of images that you can download, and it's all quite straightforward, actually. When I clicked on sign in and it asked me for this authentication code, that's only for admins, so don't worry about that. That won't happen to you. This is an evolving resource center, obviously. We keep adding. These two were just added today, actually. And if you have ideas for playbooks, please, again, write to us, and we can work on more playbooks so that we can share all this information with everybody here. If you have any questions, just email us at support@massenergize.org. That's it for me.
Well, I just want to say quickly that Kat has been working really hard on adding a lot more resources to our resource center. So please, if you haven't had a chance, please do check it out. And as she mentioned, we just put up a few new things today. And then one other thing that I want to mention. Oh, Kat, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the Resource Center now obviates, makes totally not necessary going into the Google Drive and dealing with all kinds of logins and passwords, etc. So this is a great improvement.
And we are constantly, working on improving it, making it more accessible. There are still a few, there's still a few glitches, but we're trying to make it as seamless and smooth as possible for you to be able to access and use the resources. So one other thing that I forgot to mention just in starting out is, besides the Resource Center, we've also are planning for next spring a kind of a new annual, we're hoping is going to be an annual get-together, kind of a summit, to be able to share a lot more of what we're doing and what you're doing, and supporting the work you're doing, by having an in-person gathering. So Joe is just going to tell you a little bit about that before we get into kind of the content of tonight's meeting. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, so as Nathan said, we're looking to host MassEnergize Spring Summit in the spring of next year. So save the date for April the 3rd, which is a Wednesday. It will be an all-day event running from 8:30 to 3, and we're looking to host it at Brandeis University in Waltham. So yeah, full day. We're hoping to get you together, network with peers, have workshops where we're hoping that you'll have tangible and practical tools to take home with you at the end of that. We'd love to have some community and energy speakers there to inspire you and celebrate all the amazing work that we're doing to on climate change. And also at the end, we're looking to close with an award ceremony celebrating all the amazing work that you do throughout your communities. So save the date for April the 3rd for the Spring Summit, and we're looking to have more details on registration and more details on the agenda coming soon.
For Amy, I'm going to pass it over to you now.
Yep, we're going to Brad now to talk about an exciting new product feature for MassEnergize.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you all. I'm going to this is on behalf of the product team that works on the platform, and that's me and Amy and Kat, and we're trying to decide what features will make the platform better, and we work together with the developers, who are actually a couple guys in Africa and also some interns and volunteers. One of the things we're working on, is just our process for rolling out new features. So I'm going to talk about one feature, which is the user event nudges. And these are weekly updates, email updates to users for new events that you host or share on your community site. Now, we actually have been busy over the summer. There's a lot of developments and we can't talk about them. But the new features we control with something called a feature flag, with which we can turn it on and off, and that's going to help in our rollout. So what's important is that community admins should decide whether this for their community if the feature is desired, but we need to turn it on and off for you. We test features on communities that we are community admins of, and we tested this on Cooler Concord and actually on MassEnergize Framingham. But we'll be notifying you when it's time to roll out a new feature like this, and it's going to be soon for the user event nudges. And in general, it'll be an opt-out process. That is, we think this feature is good for all communities, but it's up to you to let us know if it's not. Now, nudges are something you get from websites really quite often. And basically, it's an automated email or some other notification. We use email, and it's sent periodically according to communication preferences. So you can see for CADmins already get a nudge. They've been getting it since the spring. And it asks you how often you might like to receive it. Once a week is default. And you've seen this, many of you have seen this email. It says, get inspired by other communities. And it tells you about a list of events that other communities are hosting and that you might like to share in your communities. And this, I think, has been pretty positive. We always like to hear from you, whether it's working well, whether you understand it, etc. Now, the user event nudges is going to be even better. This is going to be sent to platform users in your community when events are scheduled on your community site. That's if you post an event or you share an event. And by default, it's sent at most once a week. But users could say, "Give me the event whenever it happens, or once a month, or whatever they want." And we send it on behalf of the community. But users will have the opt-out opportunity. And basically, you follow this link that says, "How often would you like to get this email?" I fixed the emails. You click here and you can set that preferences. And of course, we don't want users to be bugged by this. And we don't want to send it too often. We want it to be relevant. And we plan to have this feature enabled later this month. This is what an example of this nudge looks like, testing it on my community. And I had posted a couple new events. A couple lecture series in a class, and users find out about that. And otherwise, it's a secret. They won't find out about it unless they happen to go to the platform or you send them a newsletter. This is kind of like an automated little newsletter that says, here are some new events. Now, the purpose here is to get users to come to the platform. They're not going to, we want to increase engagement. We'd like them to come to the platform and attend these events. And the initial results on our two communities is that more than half of the users open the email. And quite a number of the users click on one or more of the links, so they go to the site. And that's, we consider that good. This is from Google Analytics, just a couple of graphs of how many active users there were last month. And you see these spikes are the once a week user event nudge in Concord, and here's one in Framingham. So, and this is just on the two communities now. We haven't rolled Hello, Ellen.
I have one question. So when it comes, does it come from MassEnergize or does it come from your own, like Harvard Energize?
Good question. At the moment, and this is another thing, a minor thing we want to fix, it comes from MassEnergize. And so it could be that your community users haven't heard of MassEnergize. And we think it probably should come from Harvard Energize, or the name of your community. We're working on that. That's one of the things we want to fix to get this rolled out. Hi, Debbie.
Hi, I have a question about how the content is chosen, what the criteria is.
Very good. At the moment, it is users get a nudge about events the first time it's newly scheduled. So they will only see that notification about the events once. We're thinking of changing it to be, they'll see it once, but also if you have a featured event on your homepage, they might see it 2 or 3 times, because maybe that's the event you really want to drive people to, because people miss a lot of emails. And I should mention, Debbie has been really useful for me fixing things. She tells me when she finds something that's not right, and I totally appreciate it.
Thanks for saying that, but I'm still not clear on your answer. How
Okay.
do you know what these nudges will contain?
So it'll contain an email like this will contain up to 4 or 5 events if you happen to schedule 4 or 5 events all at once. Probably within the week after you schedule them.
When you say schedule, you mean put them on the site?
Right, when you make them live.
Okay.
And Debbie, that works for both the ones that are your events or anything that you choose to share a shared event.
Good to know.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Exactly.
All right.
And yeah, thank you. And Mike.
Hi, Brad.
Hi.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm calling in from Vermont. We're in conversation. We're having conversations about whether or not we could do some of this sort of stuff in Vermont. And I guess I'm interested. Is it also possible to think about like news and announcements and other things that aren't events that might, for those people who are addicted to staying informed, could we, that, and stuff that might not like actually make the cut for a newsletter? I'm just wondering if there's other types of content that might be, and I could imagine a universe in which users could say which kinds of stuff they want to get these nudges about.
Right. That's a really good question. And we have a lot of ideas, but we've been a little slow at getting them out. And we have to think this through carefully, because we don't want to pester people with what they're not interested in. So it probably would be up to users to say, I'm interested in new events and new actions. But it also should
And now we turn it over to Marina. It's been our pleasure to work with Marina Garrido. The MassEnergize staff has been working with her in her second summer as an intern extraordinaire. And so this summer, one of the projects she did was taking a look at Google Analytics and trying to make sense of it all. And some of the data that we have, how do we make it actionable? So with that, I give it over to you, Marina.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Amy. a little bit about myself. I'm Marina Garrido. I am a junior at Tufts University. I'm studying engineering psychology and environmental studies. And was my second summer working at MassEnergize, and I am so thankful, and I'm so happy to be here. So I'm gonna share my screen now, and I work closely with Amy this summer, and we draw some I'm sorry. A lot of insights from the Google Analytics data. So this presentation is called Measuring Success with MassEnergize. And about the Google Analytics, thank you, Kat, for introducing this earlier. Right now, the Google Analytics reports and toolkits are available for all communities. And this is almost what they look like. They should be getting into your mailbox about first day of every month from now on. And now the toolkit on how to interpret each of those metrics, and a frequently asked questions section is available in the MassEnergize Resource Center. So make sure to check that out. So let's get into the findings. So we found that April was the most visited month. This is, by the way, this is data from about a year, about a 12-month period. And we had a big spike on April, naturally, because it's the month where Earth Day happens. So a lot of our communities have events, and that draws a lot of people to the platform. On the same note, Thursdays and Tuesdays are the most access days. By a little bit, Wednesday is almost up there as well. And 6 to 8 a.m. has the highest traffic across communities. So it's when most people are visiting your platform. And then Thursday here, and Tuesday here. So according to all of this, this is just like some actionable steps from all the insights that we had during our Google Analytics research. So if you're thinking about running a big campaign and you don't really know which month to prioritize, March and April are probably one of the best months to run campaigns on, like we saw. A good practice is to send newsletter any important messages on Tuesdays or Thursdays. And newsletters are also important message between 6 and 8 a.m. on those days. Perfect. And now more about measuring success. Debbie has been highlighted many times now, but today's just one more of those times. EcoNatic this past April achieved the highest engagement of any MassEnergize community platform, with almost 3,000 views in their website and almost 200 users logging in and signing up and completing actions. So that's amazing. Shout out to Debbie and all the EcoNatic team again. And let's look at some of those numbers from that campaign. So from Google Analytics, we also pull those metrics. In comparison to the previous period, there was a 45 increase in views and a 326 increase in users. So that's a big jump, and you can see more of those numbers here. They are all very big jumps. And the term views, just to make sure that everyone's on the same page, it refers of the number of times that pages are accessed, and users represents each unique IP address or each number of individual who visit the website. So these are unique visitors. And the peak views during the campaign were Thursday the 27th and Saturday the 29th. This was the day of the event, and this was Thursday was the day that Natick's Sustainability Director sent an email blast mentioning EcoNatic's Earth Day and linking it into the platform. So that explains a little bit of that spike as well. And now switching a little bit from Google Analytics, and this is data that is available on every community's portal. You can see a little bit of the engagement summary. This is a quick snapshot. This is from the month of April in comparison to March. So there were 196 user sign-ins in April and 21 new accounts created between April 1st and May 1st. So that's amazing. Yeah, so again, shout out to Debbie and everyone in the Ignatic team. Like, this is literally so impressive. Like, those numbers, they tell a story, and that's the whole goal of this presentation, is to talk about success and how like said, like a role model for other communities as well. And there's a playbook about more big events and big event organizing in the resource center as well, so make sure to check it out. And now switching fields to Medfield. Medfield also ran a campaign. It was not like an event campaign like Ignatic was. It was more like a social media campaign, but also worth highlighting because it also had so many amazing numbers coming out of it. This was happened in November last year, to almost a year from, almost a year now. Oh my gosh. And this is based on the annual action update, also available in the MassEnergize Resource Center. So if you're interested in running a similar campaign, all the materials used by Sustainable Medfield are also available there as templates. And Medfield was the most accessed community in the month of November when they were running the campaign. Again, an overview of the numbers here. Big jump on both views and users. And this is from also the Cadman portal. There was a 31% increase in action after the
Bravo, Marina. This is fantastic. I love it. It's answering the question for me. It shows me a way that if I'm doing something, I want to see, is it worthwhile doing? And here are a couple ways that I can go back and look at my efforts. We do have time for questions if people have questions for Marina. Yes, we will have a copy of Marina's presentation. Very good. All right. And now we all get a chance to talk. We had a couple of folks that we contacted ahead of time to speak to campaigns and lessons learned. So this is more on the idea of what have we been working on, what works, what doesn't, and just sharing best practices amongst communities.
I appreciate it. All right, so I'm trying to think. I was actually written up in the last newsletter, so I'm sort of a little bit of a repeat. Joe did that, which was great. And so I think some of you have seen what we did in Harvard, but we had gotten a small grant from the Montechusett, I forget what they, North Central Massachusetts, I don't know, Montechusett area. I can't remember all these different acronyms and stuff, but we had gotten a small grant that we had applied for because we were in the Worcester County area and the Montechusett area, and they gave us $1,500, which got us to be able to buy flags, have printed flags and flag poles that say "We are going green." So it has our logo. I think you saw this in the newsletter. It has our logo on it. It says "We are going green." It says Harvard Energize, and then it has a QR code. And the way we have decided to give them out is that you had to go on Harvard Energize, you had to at least, do the actions, and then you had to post 2 testimonials. And once they posted 2 testimonials, we would then go deliver a flag, put it at roadside. And we purchased 200 flags with the money we had, and 200 flag poles, metal, and the flags are made of fabric. And I'm saying this because it came up on Nextdoor recently about a concern about all this stuff being on the roadside and people don't like it, and what is it? And so I went through a whole ordeal of trying to explain that it's all recyclable, reusable, or whatever. So right now, with the 200 flags, I have 75 out there, or maybe a drop more. Or if you check our website, or Harvard Energize, you can see we have over 100 testimonials, because people have to write to get the flag. And it's spreading around town, and I'm finding that when people see them kind of in one area where they're clumped together, then people start to get kind of interested, and then they reach out and ask about it. The one thing I'll say about it, even though we have a newsletter that we send out, I found that the only way I could get this started was to personally send emails to over 50 people. Now I'm probably up to 100. I've sent personal emails, and then if somebody signs up that I don't know, or even now that I know them, I will send them an email once I deliver their flag and say, would you please spread the word? Because I feel like neighbor to neighbor and friend to friend is going to do better than us keep advertising in the newspaper. The newspaper actually did an article about the whole thing, but all the advertisement, everything we've done, I still feel like it's the personal touch that makes the difference. So once somebody signs up and does it, I send them an email thanking them, tell them I'm delivered their flag, maybe I'll see them, blah, blah, blah. And then I send them a little blurb and say, can you pass this around to friends and neighbors? And that has actually in the last week produced maybe 2 or 3 a day. Sometimes I get where people have been willing to do that once they see how easy it is. And then it just adds more. And I think this was started because of the research that you guys had. I forget who the professor was, or the PhD student who came and talked about, if 25% of the people are doing something, the other 75% will come along. Interestingly, I read a book recently where the woman said the same thing in the book from the 1950s. So this must have been a repeat of this research. And then the testimonials have been great, because we don't have a way to really acknowledge vendors because we're a town committee and we can't do that because they're not vetted, but it has actually, people have put that information up. The testimonials are fun to read, and I'm hoping other people read them, and we're going to keep this campaign going. I promised the person who was mad at me that I would remind everyone to take their flags down before the snow, and then they can put them back up after the snow, after the winter. And then I have a student who's doing a project who's going to really pull this in February or March and really try to push it some more. So, we're trying to get to the 200 flags and get them out there, and we'll see what impact that has. That's it.
Fantastic.
Question for Ellen. First of all, I know that this was a tremendous personal effort, because I was with a meeting with Ellen, and I know it is, you don't always feel supported by your infrastructure in towns. I just want to say, I think you're supported by this community. I just think we should all say it was we all do these personal emails, and it's a ton of time and effort, and bravo for you, Ellen. So I just want to, thanks for taking the research and jumping on it and doing something with it. My question starts to be a little more like, when you say you want to track success, it's number of flags up, but will you also track, what's the other metric? Is it new people doing stuff, and how are you going to track that? Because that's sort of where we want to get, right?
Yeah, it's somewhat new people, but I also can track, just like you said, with the Google Analytics. I can see how much more action we have. I think our goal now has to be upped, because the number, of actions that I wanted people to take, it's actually gone faster than my 2030 goal. So maybe I have to up that. So I think that's one way, Ellen, to, look at where we are from that perspective. And then it just, for me, it just sees whether the conversations start being there and people start doing things. And I'm trying to keep track of everyone who I have a
Let's turn it to Jude now.
Great, thanks. A lot of what I'll say, I think, has some resonance with what Elena said. So I'm in Acton, and our Energize Acton is a combination of the Energize at the town and an offshoot of the Climate Coalition. So we are part of the town, and the town has a contract with the Boat Energy Management. So that sort of plays in. So what the project was, it was a neighborhood project to take oil using neighborhoods, seeing that that's sort of the most opportune group, and offer them information webinar through a BODE about switching to air source heat pumps. So we looked at GIS maps and figured out where in town are these clusters of a large neighborhood that's all oil using, and then overlaid on that also a environmental justice map. It was an environmental justice neighborhood. There were 60 houses, 60 houses, single family. The EJ maps are not updated, and it is a family, it's a neighborhood of language was the EJ. So mostly East Indian. Anyways, they're mostly built around the same time. The idea was that with all these houses built around the same time, they're kind of similar, that a BODE could help bring in HVAC people, 3 contractors that they vetted, and say, hey, we're gonna give you this webinar, and here are 3 contractors. We'll have a contractor day, and everyone who signs up to do it can have 3 estimates from these 3 vetted contractors. So one of the things that, again, what Alan was saying, we identified a neighborhood champion, someone who we knew in the neighborhood, an individual who has a relationship possibly with all the other neighbors, or has Facebook, or some neighborhoods have emails. So we sort of checked all those boxes. We knew someone. And so she helped, we wrote a letter, she helped us work on it. And we sent a letter from town and Energize Acton saying that this program is available to people. So I don't know the numbers of how many people responded, but I think it wasn't great. So Karen, who is on this webinar, this meeting tonight, is also with Energize Acton. She and I went out and went door to door. And it was really interesting. They said, oh yeah, I got that letter. It was a physical letter. And they pulled it out of the trash, and they, so we really, there was, people throw stuff away. So it was really great doing that personal one-on-one at the door. So we did the webinar. I think there were 14 people who signed up. We felt like we probably should have done more canvassing, but this was really a pilot. We'd see how it would go. And we had the webinar, 14 people, and then we had follow-up. We also offered everyone, the town has a BODE trained coaches. They're volunteers who do energy coaching, and that has been very successful. It's on the Energize Acton website. And I forget what the number is. Oh, definitely north of 70 people have asked for a coach for all kinds of help, but mostly air source heat pumps. So people signed up to do it. I think we had 4 or 5 people signed up to do it. There's some attrition. Ended up that 4 people did it. They had scheduling problems. It was definitely a challenge getting these contractors scheduled all on one day was the hope, but it ended up being, I think, over a couple of days. 3 contractors, they got 3 estimates, and then they would send them back to a BODE, and a BODE did this price comparison tool. So it was pretty complicated. We learned a lot. I think 2 or 3 are moving forward. So some of the things that we really realized, first off, there are 60 houses in this neighborhood. We definitely could have canvassed more. There's timing challenges with all of this. People have their financial stuff. They have their health of the current system. They don't want to throw something that's not that old away. They may be moving, downsizing. There's a lot of complexities to making these large investments. So making sure that the other thing was that people understood that they didn't have to do this. This was all free. It was like, everything's free until you decide you want to move forward. You've got a coach to help you. And because it's with town, there were some concerns about the town can't say, oh, go with X, so we really had to just open-ended questions with people to help them make these decisions. The person who was our neighborhood champion couldn't be here tonight. And I asked her if she had any
Well, I want to say 2 things. One is I think we just got a lesson in community organizing. Fantastic. And it's retail and it's knocking on doors and it's paper mail and wow. 2, if I heard the numbers right, 60 households and 3, let's say, went ahead. And if I did the math, I think that's 5% penetration from this activity. 5% penetration. That may not seem like a lot for all the effort you put in, but I am very impressed and we should all be so lucky.
I have to say that we had to like rein in a boat. They were like, well, I think we should get I think the number was like 25. And I'm like, I kept saying, I would be happy if 4 people did it, like if 4 people showed up to the webinar. So thank you. It was, yeah. And I feel like the door-to-door was very successful. Karen and I had a great time. People were really positive. Took time. Karen?
Yeah, I think I just want to add that I think part of it is related to what Ellen said about, this whole social world where when one person gets it, then 3 other people go ahead after them. So I think one of the really interesting things to watch is, now that these 3 people are going ahead with the heat pumps, will it end up encouraging other people in the neighborhood to go ahead with heat pumps? And it might be a good lesson for Energize Acton to realize that we should stay in that neighborhood and continue outreach and see if it grows. I think the other challenge is that the neighborhoods that have oil are all sort of aging out now, and part of our challenge is the data problem of not knowing which households have already switched. So like Jude and I went to a couple of households and they're like, oh yeah, we have a mini split in this room, and it helps out so much. And like one family's like, oh, we've already switched over, and we're having a great experience. And so I mean, the canvassing actually, I do you agree, Jude? It kind of provided a lot of information. And I guess the question is like, how do we build on this now?
I will add 2 things. One is that there's definitely literature about it's not called tipping point, but it's sort of like things keep going and going, and then all of a sudden it shots up. And I'm holding on to the belief that that's where we are with getting people on board on climate stuff. And the other thing is that we are looking at a much larger neighborhood. It's not oil, it's gas. It's multifamily, 38 buildings. So there's like 150 units. So that'll be really interesting. But I think Karen staying with the neighborhood, I think is really right. Ellen and then Brad.
Yeah, thanks. Two questions. One is, when you did the canvassing, some people have said they've already got heat pumps. I think we have great state data on EVs and solar. We have crap on heat pumps, right? Because we don't get good data. So I'm just wondering, Karen and Jude, like when they said they were a heat pump, did you guys say, hey, like we should be counting that, right? Get them on the site, and at that point, just let's log you in and get you counted. Because I think I'll talk later about this cohort we're going to, but I think we want to do a big heat pump count. Like, where are we? Because we don't actually know, and that could be a way to do it. So that's one. And number two, I'm just wondering, for the people that didn't do it, but were interested, there's something there. So in a way, it's like on their to-do list, Jude, right? Just the time there was. So if there's a way, like on our side, I just noticed we have 28 people with heat pumps on their to-do list. So it's on my to-do list to reach out to those people to see where they're at and what's going on. So I just wonder if there's a way you can stay in touch with those people. And if all those people are on their to-do list, they could also be entered to your site, and then you'd have all their emails and you could pull it out anytime you wanted, and at least use those emails to send them a dedicated thing. Or maybe Brad, one day we'll be able to nudge anybody with a to-do to say, here's a reminder. So those may be terrible ideas, Jude, but just
no, I think they're great.
Talk more about those.
Yeah, getting people onto the site is definitely key.
Brad? So
my thought, which is maybe easier said than done, is I wonder if you got any students involved in either the canvassing or the outreach, both because we want involving students is good, but involving students in canvassing probably is good and positive. It's a good message. I was wondering,
Karen looks like she's
if anybody's tried that.
I actually talked with the high school volunteer coordinator about having students help in another framework, and they said that students cannot, at least through this particular volunteer program, high school students anyhow, they can help in public spaces, but they can't help in private spaces. So like they can't help at someone's door or on someone's private property in official capacity.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
I'll add, as I'm part of Mothers Out Front, and we often are trying to hook in with students, and I'm very close to the energy manager at the school here. And for years, she just says to me, they do what they want to do. We can't tell them what to do. She actually supervises them, and she's like,
good. I know, wonderful. This is amazing. Like, I have a just side note, I have a colleague in Energize Framingham that loves canvassing, and he's always trying to get me to get out there and do it. And I think you guys just convinced me. So he'll be thrilled. Okay, I know we have a couple more people that want to talk. But Ricky Papo from Lexington is going to speak, and then Ellen. Also, I know Ellen Tone, you're on the list as well. So take it away, Ricky.
Thanks. So tomorrow, LexCan, in cooperation with our Sustainability and Resilience Officer of Lexington, Maggie Peard, and Andy Joint, who is our Clean Heat Outreach Specialist, who we hired with our Mass Save education grant, will be launching a program called Lex Electrify. And it is really fashioned after what Newton has done. And if you all know their For Future campaign, we really liked that and thought it was a really good way to go. Trying to sort of build off something, I forget who it was talked about earlier, but this neighbor to neighbor situation where you get people talking with each other from people that they trust. So the goal of the campaign, which will, like I said, launch tomorrow night, which is our LexCan meeting, which will be our first meeting in person since COVID. So that's also exciting. We're going to serve refreshments. We've posted it everywhere. The town has been willing to post it because we're working with the town. We're getting a broader reach, which is nice. We'll be focusing on weatherization, solar, EVs, and heat pumps. So our heat pump program is similar to what was just talked about. We have a BODE, we have energy advisors. We've had over 100 people sign up to have their homes looked at and work with our energy advisor. So we feel that's going really well. So we're going to give people lawn signs. One side of the lawn sign says, Lex Electrify, etc. And then the other side has basically 4 circles, and it says solar, and it has a little checkbox next to it, heat pumps, weatherization, and people will check off what they've done in their house. So maybe a neighbor will walk by and say, oh, heat pumps, I've heard about those. Let me knock on my neighbor's door and ask them what they've done. So no results yet, but we're pretty excited about this, and we will follow it up at the end of October with an energy fair. We've done sustainability fairs before, which is soup to nuts, pollinators, composting, everything that's on our MassEnergize site as an action item. This time we're going to just focus on electrification and getting as many vendors who will come and talk to the town. We'll have an EV showcase of cars from the town. So that's October 28th. Of course, we'll let people know in MassEnergize. Anybody's welcome to come. And Kat, I'll ask this publicly. If you've got your 150,
Ellen, I think we're on to you, and then
Yep, I'm going to screen share.
Yep.
As soon as I can figure out which Google persona I put this in. There we go. Did make some slides just so I can stay on target. Let's see. What usually do it in the slideshow? Great.
Yep.
Can you guys see this? Yeah. So in Wayland did outreach to promote energy audits. Kat and I and one other member of our Energize Wayland group were kind of the lead people with some support at the end from our wonderful new sustainable manager, Abby Shute, who joined us over the last few months. So we, you've heard some of this before, but now I can show you data. We started in November, we ended in June. And you can see November, December, we had a letter from the town manager. We did some social media blitzes on the normal channels for 4 weeks. We got newsletters in Council on Aging, the All Schools, a bunch of our normal newsletter channels. In January, on the back of the census mailer, which is an annual mailer all your town clerks send out in January, there's real estate on the back. And our town clerk offered us some of that. We took it. And then we did a second round of social media, February to March, banners up in town. There was canvassing. We worked with All in Energy, and then they selected Nico as our vendor. So Nico did some canvassing around town. One of our members, Ann, did some of that with them. And we did some events. We didn't do a specific event for this, and that might have been a bad decision, but we tried to jump onto events that were already happening from all the lessons learned we've all had to be present somewhere else where there's a bigger crowd. So we were at our Wayland's first ever multicultural event, and we got more newsletters and I think a final third social media blast. So we played around with a bunch of different kinds of social media. You can see the top left is about, saving energy. And sort of money. The top right is really an argument on emissions. The bottom left is about money. The bottom right is it's going to be winter. So that was the first blast. By the time we got to our third blast, we kind of had concluded that it was better at that point to talk about testimonials. So the top left is like, hey, at this point, 142 other households in Wayland have signed up. They must be onto something. And then you'll see the two on the right, and we did a bunch like these. These are neighbors who have done it. They did it, got good rebates on heat pumps. And we had another one that talked about saving thousands of dollars on the insulation. The bottom left, we decided to kind of try one on cooling because we definitely heard from a lot of people. And you can see on the post, these are the social media posts, and then someone posted, like Kat did the one on the right, I did the one on the left, and we always had like a little tagline before that. So what happened? It was a terrible time to launch, December, really awful, but for a variety of reasons, that's what happened. But 260 households responded in 7 months, 174 had some kind of assessment done. 86 are not yet completed. You can see some are rescheduling, some are scheduled, some canceled. There's 10. I can't quite figure out what happened. And you can see, a little discouraging is 63. There was no opportunity for an insulation upgrade. We know 46 households were recommended for further heat pump work. And we've had 31 signed contracts, 61 recommended measures where they just haven't signed the contract. Nico follows up to 8 times to bug them to sign the contract. And there are 19 where there's either asbestos or a moisture problem, usually asbestos, preventing the insulation work, and we're trying to help those folks get there. So, these numbers are not as big as Melrose. For context, we have 4,800 households. We had a lot of people that had already done energy audits with Mass Save. It's a pretty high penetration here. But this is the more interesting stuff. So what worked? We tried to figure out, darn it, we're doing a million things. Do we have any idea what was effective? So we looked at signups like in the week or two after we did something. And I'm not a marketing expert, but I know you have to have like 4 touches for something to happen. So it's not like individually one thing really mattered, but we can sort of ascribe that social media definitely made a difference. We had over 100 people that we saw sign up for something in the week or two after we did some social media posting. And we're trying to sort of dig into a little deeper to see which messages resonated. But for me, the social media is a little bit of a pain in the neck, but it's definitely worth it. And we had a whole bunch of people who found us that way, who never found us through a newsletter. We of course did the Energize Wayland newsletter, Cat's the Master. We had 800 or 700 people on that newsletter list. But social media really drove some new people to us. The other big thing for us was the mail. The letter from the town manager resulted in a handful of people signing up at the beginning. It was awkward timing right around Thanksgiving. But that census mailer where we got a paragraph on the back of that thing that everybody gets in the mail and most people send back, something like 70 people signed up the week after. And we weren't doing anything else then. So that's the one thing I can really, so I keep looking up because I'm on two different screens. That's the one thing that I'm pretty sure it was kind of a lark that we did it. And I'm really sure it had an impact. So Ricky, you're doing your electrify. I would talk to your town clerk. There's some real estate on the back of that thing. Try it. And I'd like to see what happens. We all don't have enough money to do stuff. And that one is free. Right. And the other thing I did was I told our town clerk recently and said, hey, by the way, you did that for us. I just want to let you know, it had a big impact. We had 70 people sign up. Thank you so much. This woman, who probably no one ever says thank you to, said, oh my gosh, that is so, that made me feel so good. And I had no idea, Ellen. And wow, that's cool. And I said, well, would you do it again? She said, oh yeah, I'll always do it for you. So if something works and somebody went out of their way for us, I think I know it's obvious, but we forget to do it. So I would say make friends with your town clerk if you don't already know your town clerk and ask them about this. So we're kind of wrapping this. And I think one thing
Fred.
Just wonder if we can, if you can pull out one of those numbers as penetration. In other words, how many households effected the change you wanted?
Yeah, I can get that. I mean, the question is, is the change I want they did an assessment, or is the change I want that actually something happened in their house? So there's two different ones. I think engagement is definitely, if they had an audit done and MassSave said there was no opportunity, now separate, we could work on the MassSave program. That's a different argument. But so that's one number. The other is, I have a number on the homes where there's potential GHG savings, and that was 145 of the 260. And we just got to get a bunch of those people across the finish line. People just take a long time to kind of pull the plug or write the check or whatever it is.
So 145 out of, you said 4,800 homes?
Yeah, but
that's a 3% penetration. Again, not too shabby.
Yeah, and I think, but 260 out of 4,800 households engaged in some way. They responded to us, they did something, but 148 had some potential. But that doesn't count the people that had an audit where MassSave said there was no opportunity. So I'm not quite trying to count that, Fred,
Keep counting, that's all I'm saying.
So we're counting. Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't, Karen and then Mike.
Yeah, so I'd be really interested to know in the social media segment of it, because all the social media we do is very information laden, sort of like your first set of images. And I'd be really curious to know if the testimonial social media with people images, if that has more impact. I'm not sure how you gauge
Yeah.
it, but interested.
So I think I'm going to talk about this next in the cohort we're going to run, and I really hope Acton joins the cohort. I think we've got to do a better job at when we post these, seeing the number of likes or the number of activity. I mean, we post, and then just so you know, we have like a group of volunteers that Kat and I cajole. And the key is you post, and then you got to get like 4 or 5 people to comment on it, so it bumps the post up. So we have some volunteers like that's all they do. They're willing to do that, but I think we're going to learn a little bit more how to do this and track. I think it's hard to know because the testimonial stuff we did at the end, so we'd kind of already hit maybe a bunch of people who were going to do it. I think we definitely got we definitely had a strong feeling that was what we heard from some people was, is this just a are you shamming for the town? We had the town logo on every single one of these, but people are like, is this a scam? Is this whatever? But when you actually have people who are neighbors that someone might recognize, that made people think, oh, that stands out compared to save money. Like I've heard that from Mass Save before, help us reach our climate goals in town. So it's a great question. And it's our sense that they are more effective, but because they happen at the end, it's a little harder to judge, Karen. But we have to do better at trying to understand that for sure.
Yeah.
Mike?
Hey, Ellen, I guess I'll ask you the same question I asked you the last time we met.
Obviously, I didn't answer it.
Well, no, I'm just interested in, and I guess it's probably a more general question. I've been talking with the folks. I live in Middlebury, Vermont. We have a college there. We have a bunch of people that do behavioral economics, and these are all what the behavioral economists call natural experiments. Like this is just incredible fodder for people who may or may not want to, save us from the climate crisis, but are really interested in like studying stuff. And I'm just curious to know to what extent MassEnergize, or you've thought about like developing partnerships with academics who do this kind of work and can bring a certain amount of discipline, a certain amount of rigor, but also have resources and access to grants to really get to the bottom of like what actually works to get people to change their behavior.
Yeah, so we've been working with Greg Sparkman, who used to be at Princeton and now Boston College, and this is really all he studies is behavioral change related to in the environmental area. So Greg's an advisor to us. So we're going to be starting a new cohort with a group of communities.
I was going to share from Framingham. Nothing so amazing as these success stories, but we tried to have a little more fun recently. And we have had a couple in-person meetings. Traditionally, we've met at the library or those sorts of places, and we're like, you know what, let's break it up. So we've had 2 what we were calling meet and greets. One was at Exhibit A, which is a brewery right here, beer brewer right in Framingham. And just had an open door, and that was really, really nice. I had some people just pop in like that happened to be there. What's going on? So that was fun, and it was really good to connect with people again, because we had been so distant for a long time. And then more recently in July, we met at a retail store here at Shoppers World called Public Lands. And they were very supportive of, outdoor environmental sustainability groups. And they posted on their Instagram posts. So we had a couple people coming in that we would not have reached out to otherwise because we are relatively quiet on Instagram. a low presence there. But we met a couple of new folks, and that was really valuable. They're outside our our usual sphere, and so that's really helpful. We picked up from each of those events about one committed volunteer.
Yeah, if I could just jump on that. So we had a series of climate cafes this summer, very informal. But one of the things we did was a potluck cafe to celebrate plant-based foods. And we got 45 people who came. And it was kind of a joyous event. I think we need to rethink next year how to make it a little bit more activist oriented, how to build on it. But I think sometimes, yeah, just being able to get together and celebrate something, it's really important.
Awesome. So I know it is 8:28. We're coming up on time. Ellen Tone has another piece of information to talk to us about that cohort she mentioned. And then it's that time of the agenda to start thinking about next month's ideas. So Ellen, take it away.
Yeah, as you read in our newsletter, we're overjoyed that with some support from Senator Jamie Eldridge. So for those of you who he represents, I would love you to send him a nice email saying thank you. We've gotten some state allocation money to work with a cohort of about 4 communities to try a coordinated outreach campaign really around electrification, sort of the big 4, but it might be a smaller subset. So it has to include Wayland. Wayland's new to Jamie's district, so he wants to be doing something in Wayland. And we're talking, Karen, with you guys in Acton tomorrow. We're kind of going to pull in 2 other groups. And we are going to, we have some resources to hire professional marketing help. So actually designing social media stuff that aligns with what the nub of the problem is. We'll be able to hire a coordinator to give communities that we're working with a certain amount of hours per month of additional capacity, because that's, we're all limited by our volunteer base. And then we're going to build in an evaluation, and we have money to print stuff. And we're definitely doing evaluation. So Mike, taking to heart what you said, it's already in our plan to do some kind of evaluation. And we are going to include some training for the group on behavior-centered design, working with our partner Rare, and we'll do Nathan and I'll probably do it like a short little activity to help the group understand this is the behavior you want, what's the behavior they're doing, and what's getting in the way. And I think we're going to also try to do some surveying on our towns to make sure we actually understand that. Like, we all think we know why people aren't doing something. Maybe we're wrong. So we're going to try and do a little more information gathering. So that cohort will start in the fall and will run for a year with the idea of maybe starting the actual outreach in January. So Ricky, you guys are off and running, but I would love to think about how to pull Lexington into the discussions and also like the evaluation framework, because if we can add you into the evaluation, like I think that would, I do research for a living, like if the N gets bigger, if the number of units, the more data, we'll be able to maybe see some more things. Could be messier too, but Nathan and I would love to chat with you about how to involve Lexington in this. So right now, I think we're talking with Wayland, Acton, Amy Framingham, and Sean, and Debbie. We've had some discussions with Jillian, so we just have to touch base back there and just see whether we can do three or 4. We're kind of looking at our budget. I think the goal here is to come up and understand with what works, turn those into some tools and resources so that we can give them to communities, but honestly, that we can offer them to communities that might be able to buy that services from MassEnergize, some of that support, if we can prove it works in the same way that you all have contracted with a boat on some things, and we still need to pressure the state to figure out how to get more money to communities to do this kind of resident engagement. There's a subset of you that you can use your green communities grant money for this. You know that if you're on the list that you've met certain criteria. So for some of you can spend up to $10,000 to resident engagement in your green communities grant application due at the end of October. If you're confused by that, you can follow up with Amy or I in an email. We can walk you through it. So that's the cohort. It needs a snappy name with an acronym. We have to work on that. Megan, you had your hand up earlier. Did we miss a question of yours earlier?
Oh, I was just wanted to ask Amy what you did at the retail store. How'd that work?
Yeah, so it was really just a walk-in, and people didn't know what to expect, and we were kind of winging it, to be honest. So one person came in because the kids were at camp. This is a good thing for summer. The kids were at camp, finally has time to come and ask, where do I do solar? So that was like great, because she sat down and just chatted with us. And another couple other new people came in, and we just round tabled and had kind of a facilitated discussion. Here's who I am, and what are your biggest climate concerns? What can we do in Framingham? And just making people feel heard was really the theme.
And they had a space for you.
They did. They have a small meeting. Yep, space.
Nice.
And I just want to say in the cohort, we're going to also do some training for coaches. I know people are getting coaches through a boat or the Heat Smart Alliance for heating, but Kat will also think whether solar is part of it, and Kat couldn't do a training for solar coaches as well. So we just got to figure it out how that all kind of fits together. So stay tuned for that. All right, Amy, back to you. I know we want to end on time.
Yeah, we are doing well. The next topic before we wrap up is, what are people interested in hearing about at our next meeting? We have a couple ideas. One of which is going back and talking about the Inflation Reduction Act incentives again. Another is talking about how a researcher could come and talk about how evaluation works for these kind of programs. Other ideas certainly welcome. Throw it in the chat, or
please put them in the chat. Yeah, no, that'd be great, so we can kind of document them. That'd be terrific.
I wouldn't mind getting a quick reaction if people take their cameras off. Like, I'm just curious on the IRA. Amy did a really nice presentation before. We're thinking of writing up kind of a quickie on IRA incentives that people could post as one of their 4 buttons on their screen, on their home screen. Then you can link all your actions to that, and then we could update that for you periodically. But curious, IRA incentives, yes, no, you already feel like you know them, would be helpful. I could use some. Okay. All right. Maybe. All right. Enough. And what about just to this point of like, how do we design and evaluate whether what we're doing is successful? Like, would we want someone who's good at evaluation to come in and give us some thoughts about that? That looks.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So both of those are interesting. Next meeting, Mass Clean Energy Center is
How about using humor to attract people?
humor. Yeah. I mean, I love that. I think we're going to build that into the cohort. I will, there's some very funny videos that my favorite marketing person, energy efficiency, Suzanne Shelton, does. And I think they're hysterical. And I think it'll be good. So I think in the cohort we're going to do, we're going to try to use humor, and we'll just see how that goes. But I don't know if I could get Suzanne to speak to this group. It would be a huge favor because we're kind of small, but I could ask Suzanne if she might want to be a speaker. But Nathan also for the April conference.
Mm-hmm.
We actually have in Wayland Pablo Suarez, who is now specializing in humor and climate risk. So it's not climate action. He works for the Climate Center, the Red Cross Climate Center. So we could invite him too to speak about how he works with cartoonists and cardboard theater to convey information about climate risks.
Okay.
Yeah, some good things in the chat coming up. Wendy, you ask about how many people are getting the new IRA incentives. I have not looked into that question. That's a great question. If anyone knows, please send it out. And Susan, thank you for pointing out MassSave is currently having their next 3-year planning working session. If you want to see changes for in MassSave, this is the time to tell them about it. So just bringing that to your attention.
Maybe Susan, I think if you could send an email to us on like how people could provide input and where they would send it with EAC, or like, just let's make it easier. And thank you.
Yeah. Kat?
Yeah, I just got a private message, but it's important to all of us. This event we've all probably been looking forward to. The conversation with Climate Chief Melissa Hoffer on Tuesday has been cancelled. So we'll take care.
Oh, it'd be fun, Mike, to do a state policy comparison. Some areas you guys have got us beat in Vermont, you know?
I would say for those of you who know, the DPU has put out guidance on how they should go faster and better in reviewing CCA plans. Its comments are due by October 6th. I think most of us that are involved in CCA are working with our consultants on comments, but it's very important to weigh in on this because this is a disaster in the way it's currently being done. So if people have questions about that, they can reach out to us. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, we can put you in touch with the right people.
Nathan, you want to wrap us up?
Sure. Well, just to remind everybody that now that we're back in the cycle, so the next our next meeting will be the second Monday in October. And I must say, I'm not looking at my calendar, so I don't know exactly what.
That's formerly known as Columbus Day, now Indigenous Peoples Day.
Right. So we do need to decide. I think that probably what we should do is push it out to the following Monday.
We can push
it. Is that all right? Is everybody? Would that be okay to have it on the following week? Okay. Sounds like I'm getting some thumbs up and some yeses in the chat. So okay. So yeah, thank you, and thanks for alerting us. But thank you, everybody. If are there any final words of any questions, comments, thoughts, reactions? Yes, Megan.
I'm just wondering, is anybody here planning to go to New York City September 17th?
Yes, and there's a whole week of action being planned. I don't know all that's going to be going on, but yes, hopefully we've got folks who are going to be joining the kind of the uprising, so to speak. Well, and we'd love to hear about your experiences. So that's always something. So we really want this to be a place to share, to get ideas, to be motivated. So please bring your thoughts, bring your ideas, send them during the month if you have them. Oh, this would be something good to share with MassEnergize. We really appreciate hearing from you. Want to remind people about our Slack channel. And that's an active place. There's always good discussions going on Slack as well. Yes, Megan, another comment.
Sorry, I keep forgetting things. But speaking of Slack, Sustainable Medfield worked with the Charles River Watershed Association to create 2 new actions around water. So I'm very happy with them because they were done by the Charles River Watershed Association. So we know they're nice and accurate. So I announced that in Slack, which was nice. So to point everybody to that. But even better than that is that Amy managed to put them into everyone's account as a template. So if you go into your account and log in, you'll be able to find the action and you could add it to your site. Yes? Yes. So I think that's actually something that would be good to talk about. We can figure out how to do it. If you write a cool action, I think we should be sharing that with each other to say, gosh, I just did this. Have a look, add it to your site so we can be up to date and have really cool action. So
can I just ask a question on that? So Amy, is it in there just as an unlive action that you can make live?
It should be a template that communities have to copy, and then you assign it to your community, and then you can save it and make it live.
Just one question for communities that are using the Newton icons. Is there an icon associated with that fits with those kinds of icons that Wayland and Newton are using? Or maybe we can ask Newton to create an icon that looks like this. Do you know, Megan?
I don't know, but I'm looking forward to going to resources.massenergize.org and looking at the image library to find out.
If you could find, if there's one that you like for that, that'd be great. And if not, let's reach out to Newton, see if their graphic designer will do one.
Great. Okay, yeah, Debbie. Debbie's got a comment or question.
Thanks. A few meetings ago, a conversation started about electric school buses. And I understand from our sustainability director, Jillian, that the grant that a number of towns collaborated on to have a study done for how communities could collaborate on making the switch, that grant was approved to do the study. Does anyone have any further updates on that?
That's what I know too. So that's an MAPC thing. So they're going to do this. They're going to work on it.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Okay, well, if we don't have any more comments, thank you all for joining us tonight. It's always live. It's a nice, lively conversation, and we look forward to the next one, which we'll be sending reminders out about, but it won't be that second Monday in October. It'll be the 3rd. So thank you, everybody, and keep up the good work.